have a gravity-fed mash and sparge system. No pumps needed. Just need to build your tower, stack it all up. Got some nice hot water here. A mash tun here. We're going to weigh up specific amounts of pounds per gallon so that we can get a specific amount of sugar out here, our fermentables. We will drain our cereal mash water mix into our boil kettle, our brew kettle, and try to max out our volume here. So I'm going for 20 gallons today. I got a 25-gallon brew kettle. So we're going to fill this sucker to the brim. A lot of people are afraid to do that because of boilovers, but in my opinion the boilover is just to be expected. So we're going to max it out. Hopefully pull about 20 gallons of fermentables out of this. We got our buckets. These are our fermenters. Very basic. You can see 5-gallon bucket. Put that in the living room at about 68 degrees Fahrenheit for a week. Transfer it to a glass container and let it finish fermenting for a couple more weeks, and then you're ready to keg and bottle.
All right, and where are we off to now? We're gonna weigh some grain.
Right now we gotta weigh our grain, so.
All right.
We're gonna expect what we call some gravity, some sugar. We measure it in specific gravity. And they say that we can expect 1.028 points of specific gravity per pound of grain per gallon of water. So we want approximately 1.056, what people call like a 10 number, 1056, 1050. So if we're getting 1028 per pound per gallon, I want 2 pounds per gallon, so I can get approximately 1056, right?
Specific gravity?
Specific gravity, which will give us approximately about 5% alcohol in the end after fermentation.
Awesome.
So there's a way of measuring our sugars and potential alcohol through our sugar. So that's what our measurements are. So today we're going to go 2 pounds per gallon.
And what is this grain right here?
This here is our Kolsch. It's a specialty grain as well as a base malt. It's very light grain, light toast. The whole thing with the grain is you harvest your grain and you get it moist so that it wants to sprout. During sprouting, it releases all its sugars and nutrients to activate the sprout, and then we get the grain to activate the sprout and then instantly put it on high temperatures and kill that sprout for as much sugar as possible out of that, and then toast it. This is a very light toasted grain. It's actually built, it's made in Germany in an area, I think it's called Cologne, where Kolsch actually is made. It's like champagne. It can only be made in this region of Germany. So we're going to make a California Kolsch today.
Awesome.
This is probably a good 45% of our mash. About 20 pounds. This is about 16 pounds. What do we got? 16 pounds. So we're going for 20 gallons, 2 pounds per gallon. We're going to need 40 pounds of grain. This is an acidulated malt. I mistakenly tasted it earlier. We just tasted the Kolsch. What's it taste like? Biscuits, man. It's just it's like eating granola in the morning. It's awesome. But this stuff, well, we tasted this earlier. Very light. It's called acidulated malt, and it helps in the process of the mash by reducing the pH of the mash and therefore helping to extract more proteins and sugars and more complex. And we got our mill here, which is set kind of in an optimum, space for crushing the malts to get the sugars out, but not pulverizing them so much that they just turn into powder. Mm-hmm. So we're going to mill our grains before we throw them in the mash.
And what is the other grain down here?
This is another, this is Pilsner. Wireman, high grade, another base malt. So basically with all beers there's a base malt, whether it's Pilsner, 2-row, 6-row, pale ale malt, and then this Kolsch is, you know, specialty, but also can be a base malt. So we're kind of blending our bases.
And this is more expensive, obviously, than that, right?
Well, yeah, and I bought that by the pound, where this I bought by the sack.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I got, what, 60 bucks involved here, another approximately $2 a pound, and 20 pounds, $40. We're gonna have $100 a grain, $50 to $100 of hops, and we're gonna have 20 gallons of beer, hopefully. Sugar, baby, sugar.
Sugar, lots of sugars, huh?
Adding the grain. We preheated this water here, about 10 gallons, to about 160 degrees. And the idea here is to hit a specific temperature and rest at that temperature for up to an hour, so that the hot water can extract the sugars from the grain.
So this is about extracting our sugars
and proteins. We've already mashed our grain. This system is maxed out. It's what we call a thick mash versus a thin mash. This smells like your morning bowl of oatmeal. It's just delicious.
Delicious.
So we've milled our grain. Now we're mashing in. Call this the mash in. The mash in temperature. In fact, I'm going to turn off my heat just to make sure we don't go past an ideal temperature. Somewhere between 135 and 155 degrees is where we'll get some good sugar extraction. Some people do protein rest at a lower temperature to extract some proteins, to add mouthfeel to your final brew, and to feed the yeast during fermentation. Oh, this is not a boil over, this is a mash over.
A mash over.
So we're definitely maxed out here. Approximately 40 pounds of grain and 10 gallons of water.
And what's the size of the pot?
This is a 15-gallon pot. Inside is a screen. So at the end, when we finally drain our water off, our wort, we'll not have too much grain in it. Ideally, we'll have no grain when we want to boil our wort.
Yum.
And we'll get to that process, but it's kind of a filtration, circulation process. Creates a filter bed in our mash as we recirculate the water, and it'll start coming out clear. It's probably about a 40 to 50 minute process of recirculation.
So this will be about an hour of letting the mash sit in the hot water?
Yeah, and we might do a temperature rest depending on where we're at now. We can kind of test because we just put cold grain into hot water.
Yeah.
160 degree water. Looks like we're going to get up to 140. Or drop the temperature. So we had our air temperature grain. I'd say 140, that's a really good temperature to come in at. Ideally, for about an hour, we're going to be up at 150 to 153 degrees for Pilsner, because we have mostly Pilsner malt here. Sometimes people will come in at 120, but there's this optimum temperature range between about 130 and 135 for what they call an amylase extraction and a protein extraction. Just different types of sugars are extracted at different temperatures.
Awesome.
So we'll probably leave this here for 15 minutes and then boost it up to 150 some degrees for another hour. Let it rest there. And then finally we'll get out in the high 160 degree range, maybe 168, for our final circulation and extraction.
Alright, now I see why they call it the mash.
The mash in is the mash. Cereal mash, our cereal grain. I just want to take a bite.
10 more minutes.
Well, we need to get it up to temperature, however long that takes.
What temperature?
We're looking for like 165 and 168. Doing a
Really that
Pilsner
high, huh?
for our recirculation and the sparge. A nice high temperature. The high temperature will help the sugar solution flow faster. Because it can get quite thick and sticky.
Yeah.
And we want to extract all these sugars out of here. We don't want them sticky. We're getting there, but it sure takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Get up 10 degrees and 40 pounds of grain and water.
A lot of
We've
grain.
done our temperature rest. We've got all the sugars in there with our grain, and we're going to drain this watery sugar solution out. We've got our temperature almost perfect. I mean, 168 for our sparge is exactly where we want to be. Here we go. We're going to go for kind of a slow flow recirculation. And as you can see now, here's our liquid, and it's pretty chunky. It's got some chunks in there.
Oh yeah.
Again, this is our all gravity system. So I'm gonna have to do the work when it comes to recirc. Otherwise, you could hook a pump up between this line and my sprinkler system and just pump over. And that's my next step.
Yeah.
In this brew system, is to automate it.
With a pump.
For now, it's what I call the bucket brigade. And you can see now the grain is all exposed up here. And I don't want to disturb it too much. But as I pour this murky sugary solution with grain particulates through here, it's going to slowly create a bed of grain, which will also be our filter. And as we do this, the grain will settle and we will have a layer of liquid above the grain bed. And that's when we'll start to sparge.
And we're basically trying to collect our wort, right?
We're collecting our wort, but we don't want any particulates in it.
Yeah, we want it clean.
So it can give you some funky flavors, you know, maybe grainy flavors later on in the brew. Which, you know, isn't all that bad. But we would like a nice clear wort.
This smells really good.
What's it smell like?
It smells really good.
It's like cream of wheat with honey and maple syrup dribbled over the top of it.
Yeah. 40 pounds, or how many pounds of grain we got here?
Yeah.
40 pounds.
40 pounds of grain.
Boiled in, or not boiled, but steeped in 160 degree water for an hour.
And right now we got a nice color here. This is a Pilsner, very light. Very light. But it will get even lighter as it filters out the particulate. Alright, we're here. We've been doing the bucket brigade for 15 minutes approximately. And you may tell that it looks more like beer now instead of soup.
Yeah.
Pretty happy with how it's looking at this point. It's getting real clear. But just to make sure, I'll probably do this 3 or 4 more times. And we're bringing our sparge water up here in our sparge pot. Just basically just hot water, which we're gonna flush through our grain bed to extract as much sugar as possible. You can also see there's no more grain exposed up here. It's covered in water and sugar. So we don't want to get any of our sugar stuck in that grain. So we're going to rinse it with nice hot water.
Yeah.
And we got a nice filter bed down in there. The grain has fallen into a nice little grain bed. And a great filtration system. Man, that is nice and clear. A few little particulates, but those will all drop out in solution during fermentation. One last pitcher. I'm just going to let it drain right into my boil kettle now. I'd like to say there's no particles in there, but it's practically impossible.
Yeah, you've made a natural filter out of your grain.
There it is.
Our wort.
Our wort.
The beginning of our wort.
Sugar extraction. Commencing. So what I want up here is a nice few inches of liquid above my grain bed. I'm going to run hot water, so slowly the temperature dropped as we exposed the liquid to air here, probably down to about 158, 160. Now we've heated this water up to about 168, 170, and we're just going to flush all that sugar on through. Some nice hot water.
Yeah, and we're collecting wort down there now, huh?
We are collecting, nice and slow. I like to kind of take a look at our color here. Like I was saying, it's going to start out this nice golden color, and by the end we'll be looking at some water in there.
Clear
liquid.
It means we got it all.
Yeah. And my fingers are so sticky. I mean, they're practically sticking together now because there's so much sugar in here. And what I want is same amount of water going in is coming out. Got a nice little sprinkler head here which distributes that water all out and around and through the grain bed is the idea behind the sprinkler. You can do this anyway. I mean, just a valve with it flowing in with a nice few inches of water over your grain bed will do it. But the idea behind this is to kind of get the whole surface area of all that grain in there, flush it out.
I can see that liquid on top of there is cleared up quite a bit. So that's the fresh sparge water.
Still got a nice golden color in there.
So we should end up with, what'd you say, 40 gallons? 20 gallons?
25 gallons we want.
25 gallons.
Pre-boil.
Before the boil.
Water is like completely exhausted. Grain bed exposed. And the color of our grain here, as you can see, is almost clear. There's practically no color coming out. Let's see what we can collect. Wow, that, I mean,
pretty clear.
So that's kind of an indication that we've extracted all sugars and colors out of this.
25 gallons of wort.
Getting ready for boil. We'll start our hop additions. We should extract some for our initial gravity, pre-boil.
Pre-boil gravity.
Specific. Yeah, I got a little valve down here. How convenient. Wow, there it is, huh?
That's the stuff right there, huh?
I'll cool that down. Take our specific gravity reading for pre-boil gravity. I'm expecting, you know, a 1.04 or higher. So that our final gravity after boil is about 1.05. Whoa! Ow!
Turn her down?
No.
Really?
I don't know what causes that. There's something to do with
The pressure.
the initial, like, boil over.
Yeah, I saw it Yellowstone. It's the pressure.
But it
'Cause-
only happens right at the beginning.
Yeah?
And then when you add hops, it does it again. I think we're going to get about, I don't know, about 20 gallons. It's a light beer. I'd say about a ½ ounce per gallon ought to do it. Start out with a couple 4 ounces in the beginning, 60 minutes for bittering. A few more ounces in the middle of the boil, and the rest of it at the end for flavor.
And the total boil times would be what?
I think we'll go for like 60 minutes. So I'll take note of time right now. It's about 2:30.
Yum.
Yep. And plate full of hops is about 2 ounces. So we got 4 ounces here at the beginning of boil. Cascadian hops, nice 16.1 alpha acid. And it's nice high percentage for the bittering flavor. Tempted to throw in the last of it just because I got some, but
Oh, wow.
I don't know if I want to do that. It'd be a little hoppy.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. You're trying to make a mellow beer.
We'll save that hops for another boil. So we're going to check our pre-boil gravity here, which, you know, can kind of help you predict what to do in the boil. Maybe there's not enough sugar, you need to add more sugar, or there's too much, you need to add water. And we're getting a reading of 1.052, it looks like to me, which is pretty good, pretty high reading for pre-boil. So that goes to show we had very efficient sugar extraction. Get 25 gallons at 1.054 almost. So it's pretty much close to exactly our projection of 2 pounds per gallon of water with a estimated specific gravity of 1.028 per pound per gallon.
Yeah.
So we doubled that, which would be 1.056, right? So we've had very efficient extraction. And now we have high potential alcohol.
Yeah. 1.052, you're saying?
I think so, because every mark represents two points. Looks like a 5.4 somewhere. 1.05, 4, 3 or 4.
Yeah, there we go. The second edition. Four more ounces. Oh, some more? Each plate's an ounce or what?
Yeah.
So what makes this not an IPA?
Well, we started with Pilsner malt, which is not pale malt.
Oh, okay.
So that
What's
makes
the
it
difference
pretty much a
between-
Pilsner.
You mean the seeds, the barley seeds we had
Yep,
were a Pilsner?
it's a Pilsner.
And a pale would be what? Darker or lighter?
It's the same color, just a different malt. Different grain. Also, an IPA has a lot of hops.
Isn't this a lot of hops though?
No, this is a pretty moderately hopped beer. It's probably hoppy for most Pilsners. And then we also had Kolsch malted Kolsch grain, which was about 40% or more of our malt for grain bill. And we're using a German ale yeast. So could call it technically a Kolsch because of those reasons. Otherwise you could use a Pilsner yeast or a lager yeast to make a lager. People are real specific about styles and stuff, but this, if you wanted to call this style, it'd probably be a hoppy Pilsner. So this is our second edition at 30 minutes. I've read that you need the full 60 minutes to make full use of your bittering oils in the hops. To extract all the bittering oils from the hops should go about 60 minutes. So anything under 60 minutes is considered flavor for aroma, your aromatic hop additions. So we're doing one here at the last 30 minutes. And then I plan on adding another 4 ounces or more at the last 5 minutes of the boil, which will contribute mostly to the aromatic aromas of the hops and bring out more of the herbal flavors and plant-like flavors of the hops.
Alright, what's this step of the game called?
Here we are again on our gravity system.
Gravity system. Down another level.
Emptying our wort that we've chilled down to 80 degrees for optimum yeast pitching. And here I've, the night before I mixed up a little batch of malt extract and got the yeast going, so we got a nice head start on yeast production. I'm going to stir them up here and see, get them mixed up in solution. And now you can kind of see that they're putting out a lot of CO2 here.
Bubbling, yeah.
So they're really active. Thinking about extracting some other yeast off of another fermenter and doing a yeast experiment. In these 2 buckets we'll put this German ale Kolsch yeast. And in our other fermenter we'll do a California ale yeast. And yeast contributes big flavors to beer, so I expect that there'll be a contrast in the same 2 worts, but
2 different yeasts.
2 different yeasts. Whoa.
That one has a bunch of malt extract, your other one won't have though, right?
That's true. So I'm going to go for half of this yeast in here and go for one big mix. See if I go down to this bar on the...
You sure you want to do half? Because you were going to do quarter, right?
Yeah, but now I'm going to extract the California ale yeast off the bottom of my other fermenter.
Wow.
It's probably about half. The other half in there.
Here, hold it for a second. That's all right. Yeah, all right.
And get our other half of the yeast colony here. Notice my malt extract is a nice dark color. Oh, it's really going to change the color of this beer.
Yeah, it sure is. This is what happens when you change your recipe as you're making your beer. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright.
Here we've extracted some yeast out of the bottom of another fermenter, my stainless steel conical. And we're gonna put it into our new wort. It's probably more than enough yeast. Maybe I shouldn't use so much. Just put about half of it in.
We're gonna make another 5 gallons, aren't we?
That's true, so why don't we save about half of this?
Yeast, California yeast.
California ale yeast. There we go.
That's the least appetizing part of this whole process.
It smells like beer.
Oh, yeah, it smells good, yeah. You're right. Smells good.
Sticky.
And that's what's left. It's all done and over. Hops, grain, extracted.
Extraction complete.
Extraction complete.